Right, peeps, I'm back, and I want your help this week. I need some comments in the chat about what I should do because I'm in three different minds because there's been a late contender. So we're going to run through them, and then we'll have a look at what's happening around the place because I've pretty much decided already, or I thought I'd decided, that I was going to bring in Watkins because first off, we'll look at the polls. Watkins on Fantasy Scout, very few votes it gets these days, but Watkins is twice as popular as the next option, which is Buemo, who I do currently own. Salah's pretty much nowhere. Liverpool are literally on the beach in Dubai, and it's really between those two of my current owned players. If we then go and look at ownership, we can see Isaac's on 60, Wood's on 31. So I'm having to decide which one of those two to take out for Watkins. So my first plan, and I've looked in detail at this week and next week to try and work out which is the best option, and it is difficult. So we'll go back to 37. So this is my team for game week 37. Rogers in for Sarr, obviously. Wan-Bissaka in for Livramento. And possibly, I'll leave Sarr first on the bench, I think. Not a bad fixture for Sarr, but 3 days after the FA Cup final, it could be, it's not ideal. Sarr's been very unlucky, actually, the last few weeks. I know he's been heavily outscored by Eze, but it was not as one-sided as it appeared. It could have easily been the other way, to be honest. Just haven't done as well as he could have done. Very unlucky to be offside the other day, and when he scored. So let's have a look. So this is my team, fine as it is. First option, save. Gives me 2 transfers next week, which I would need to decide what I'm doing with Saka. Not a terrible option. Would mean I had to captain Buemo, who is only half as an attractive captaincy option as Watkins, who is being heavily bought in, especially around the level I'm currently at. So not having Watkins is risky. Second plan, which would have to be done tonight, is to do Wood to Watkins. Exact money in the bank leaves me with 0. Problem with this plan is that next week I cannot get Saka without taking a hit unless I remove Salah, which I do not want to do because it's Liverpool's final home game of the season. They might be on the beach, but you have to think that they will make an effort for the last match. The Palace are pretty good at the moment, aren't they? But, they could still be hung over from the FA Cup. They don't really have anything to play for now, Palace, do they? Once the FA Cup's out of the way, they're going to mentally relax probably, aren't they? So, defence, I can play anybody next week, so that's not a problem. Literally any of them. I should have saved my bench boost for next week because my defence is ridiculously good. Obviously, I didn't know that at the time, but it was going to be so good at this stage. But we shall see. Anyway, I've got a fantastic team as it is. This is if I do Wood to Watkins. So I've got a great team. Only downside is I don't have Saka. And if Saka goes off against Newcastle, then he's going to be a hugely popular captain next week away at Southampton. So I would want him. If he's 40-50% captaincy next week, I'm going to want him. Watkins' fixture is great next week too. Man United will either be drunk, happy drunk. They'll be either happy drunk or drunk and depressed, one of the two. So we don't know which one. But either way, we're probably not going to be much in the way of Villa beating them. Bowen's a potential captain. But like I said, if Saka looks really good against Newcastle, he's going to be hugely popular. I can't get him. What I would do in this situation is take out Buemo away at Wolves, replace him with Saka, and take out Sarr and replace him with a 4.5 option. Somebody, or even a 4.8, whatever, anybody like this. And that would be my final team. Saka as captain. Great team. But it would cost me 4 points. So that's one option. Second option, instead of taking out Chris Wood, who people are actually buying this week, instead of taking him out, taking out Isak. Advantage of taking out Isak is I can wait until Friday before doing my transfer. Not much between Isak and Wood. I mean, Wood, they really need to win this week, Nottingham Forest, which you'd think would help Wood. But Forest aren't a natural attacking team. I suspect that if Forest attack to try and win, the main beneficiary is going to be Bowen. You know, Bowen is actually a decent differential captain this week. So that's an option. Taking out Isak. The trouble is we go forward and then I don't have Isak at home to Everton, who, you know, if Isak does score against Arsenal, he could be the top captain pick next week, couldn't he? At home to Everton. So I have Wood at home to Chelsea, and if Forest don't beat West Ham, I wouldn't want him. So then I'd do Wood to Evan Nielsen next week. Again, very strong team, but I would not have Saka. So if I wanted Saka, having taken out Isak, it would be easier, but I still can't do it without a... Well, maybe I can. Maybe I can. I could do Buemo to Saka. Yeah, I could do that next week. I can't do Sarr to Saka, but I could do Buemo to Saka, captain him, and have this team, but then I'd have no Isak. That's the difference, but it wouldn't be for a hit. So that's one plan. Now, here's a plan for you, peeps. Instead of doing any of this, don't get Watkins and take out Chris Wood and get Jamie Vardy and stick the captaincy on him. This is the Maverick plan. Needs one more goal for 200. They're home to Ipswich, who, by the way, aren't playing too badly themselves. And against a fellow championship team, they might want to put down a marker for next season to say that they are the big boys next season. So it could not be that easy for Leicester, this game against Ipswich. But we shall see. But that's one option. And the big advantage of that option is that next week I can either do Vardy to Evan Nielsen for free, or I can take out Sarr and simply replace him with Saka. Where's Saka gone? He's disappeared. Oh, he's up there somewhere. Right, I've gone way down, way down. Hell is he? Oh, I've already put him in. So go to there. That team there. Looks absolutely fantastic again. Obviously, my transfer would be Vardy to Evan Nielsen in this case. And that team there looks brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. If you were actually free hitting next week, this would not be much different to the team that you'd come up with. Almost perfect, this team for next week. That is by doing Vardy for Wood this week. Although, to be honest, all of the teams that I've come up with here look great for next week. That wouldn't actually be for a hit, by the way. So I forgot to reset the game week. It would just be a question. It would just be Sarr, actually. Sarr to Saka. and bench Vardy. That would be it. Absolutely fantastic team. So, now the four plans. So let me know what you think's the best. Currently, I'm leaning towards taking out Wood for Watkins, basically because not many people around my rank own Wood, and I'm kind of playing it safe, and I'm using my assistant manager as my means to climb a table. Now we'll go and have a look, shall we, and see what FPL Review recommends that I do. So we'll have a look at that and see what Review wants me to do, because we know it always comes up with fantastic suggestions, doesn't it, peeps? Absolutely fantastic. So here we go. It should be quick as well because it only has to solve 2 weeks instead of 6. So let's see what FPL Review wants me to do. It wants me to change my assistant manager. Oh, right. That's going to change, surely. What else is it looking at? Isak and Sarr for a hit to Palmer and Evan Nielsen this week. I don't like that. Do you like that? I mean, Evan Nielsen are playing Man City, so it's probably going to be benched. It obviously likes Palmer, who could do well this week, but Chelsea are very unpredictable. So it actually wants me, I've got 2 transfers left this season, and it wants me to take out Pep and replace him with a Brighton manager who are playing Liverpool this week. Now let that sink in, peeps. That's what it wants me to do. Second best option for me this week, apparently, is to take out Pep and put it on West Ham, whose opponents desperately need to win to qualify for Champions League. That's the best at this thing. I tell you what, those of you that have watched me a while, you remember Bonkers the Robot, who used to pick my captains. He was really good at captain picking. I might bring him back next year. I'm going to bring him back next season, because if this is the best FPL Review can do, Bonkers could do a lot better than this. You know what I mean? Absolutely ridiculous. Third best option, Sarr to Palmer, Isak to Evan Nielsen. Fourth best, no transfer. Well, I put it to you, no transfer is better than any of those ones above. Sarr to Madueke. Madueke. Yeah, he's not a bad shout, Madueke, this week. I'd prefer Neto, I think, if I was looking for a differential. Wood to Watkins is there in about 6th position. Now, we've got to note that this is the points here down in the right. So it doesn't actually think there's a huge difference between them all. Only about 1 point between a lot of these options. But some of them, to be quite frank, are completely bizarre. Why it would want me to do Pep. I know Pep could lose this week, but I'm prepared for that. I don't think it's worth a transfer, especially to change to the Brighton manager, even though Liverpool might be on the beach. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, peeps. Honestly. I despair. I despair. Right, we'll have a quick look at Reddit. Clean sheet odds. So here we go. Right, I have to decide between Livramento or Wan-Bissaka. Now I know if I pick Wan-Bissaka, he's going to blank because he only scores when he's on my bench. However, he does have much better odds for Newcastle of keeping a clean sheet. So I probably will start Wan-Bissaka. One thing that surprises me on this table is how much of a clean sheet chance Palace appear to have. And it's only a few days after the FA Cup. I thought they would have been much worse than that. But they seem to be up there. So you'll all be playing Munoz, of course. Whether Munoz starts or not, you'd think he will do, but you never know. Right, at the bottom, and this is why everybody is targeting Watkins, which is what's putting me off the Vardy plan, because Tottenham are much more likely to concede than Ipswich. And when you're mucking around with the likes of Leicester and Ipswich, you never really know what you're going to get, do you? So, but you pretty much know that Villa at home, final home game of the season, needing Champions League, are going to go for it against Tottenham. You'd say Watkins pretty much guaranteed 90 minutes. You can see why he's the clear captain choice. You can also see why people want Palmer. They might put out stronger teams than initially thought, but the problem is they're still going to be worried about injury and everything else. So they're going to put their strongest players out to give them a run, basically. That's about it. Arsenal defence not terrible, so I will be playing Saliba, Guardiola, and Wan-Bissaka in defence, and in goal Martinez ahead of Henderson. If you've got Raya and Martinez, you're going to play Martinez. So that's about that for clean sheets. What else have we got? We got to the top. Focal here has done a video on somebody who's trying to be last at FPL. They make 20 transfers each week, and they've got people like this in their team, which just highlights how few people actually play FPL properly. I'd say it would be looking at the ranks amongst people that play the game properly. I'm seeing very few people this season outside the top 500,000. Very few people. Even people that have played terrible, you know, like Late Riser, are still in the top 500,000. And so really, I wonder if there's even more than 500,000 that play it properly. So Liverpool players on the beach, literally. Farewell trip for Trent in Dubai. And I don't know if it's true or not. I guess it is. It does say exclusive. Maybe it's made up. You never know with Reddit. Come up with all sorts of bollocks. I'm not playing till Monday, so I suppose it's fair enough. But, you know, Trent's going to have a cry and they're consoling him. You know, he didn't like getting booed. All that you'll never walk alone. Well, Trent's already walking alone and forgotten, and now they don't even like him anymore. Right, so who cares what price Haaland will be? Now, if I do go Wood to Watkins, one disadvantage is I have to go tonight because Watkins is hovering around 100% to rise, and it's not accurate because Haaland went up last night and Mykolenko went up last night, and neither were predicted to. So I can't afford to take the risk. So, a load of rubbish here. There we go. Here's the Scout team. Remember I said last week, it's sometimes best not to have them, because I think their team last week, which looks really good on paper, we only got about 40 odd points, I think, last week, didn't they? Because obviously we went for Sri City and all of that. So everything's so random this time of year. We just never know what's going to happen. Whatever you think's going to happen, the opposite happens normally. Isak Arsenal. Yeah, I'm certainly thinking it's safer for me to keep Isak. You know, I mean, obviously he'll probably blank, but he hasn't scored for 4 game weeks apart from a penalty. But, you know, he's quality, isn't he? So, and he's a lot more heavily owned around my rank than Chris Wood. So, you know, the Scout team last week only got 44 points. Captaincy dilemmas. Worst team last week finished with 26 points in the top 10k. Went from 2k to 7k. Be absolutely gutting, wouldn't it? Absolutely gutting. Now he played Marmouche, maybe he didn't, maybe he's not one of the ones who hangs around on deadline to try and scalp some team news. Great team on paper, bad score in practice. So we got, sometimes the stuff's hidden away further down. Always Cheating podcasts, they're giving up. They've been there for 10 years. They actually started on my website, Not people, many people will realise this, but I used to have a website, and I got these, well, they came and asked me actually if they could come on my website and whether I'd promote their podcast for them when they were just starting. So every week they used to give me a link to their podcast, and I'd put it on the website for them, So I kind of gave them their big break, So not that I get any thanks for it, but gave them a break. I actually said farewell to them on Blue Sky the other day, and they didn't even bother replying to me. So good riddance to them, basically. So what else have we got here? Teta off for a 1-pointer. That's about it, peeps, I think. So, not much happening. Now, last week, of course, was a lot of talk about the deadline, wasn't there? And the deadline, actually, I put that up because I was going to make a video about the deadline, and I started off. Now, there's 4 options here for the deadline next season. A lot of people saying move it to the deadline, but there's 3 problems with moving the deadline to game time. There's 3 problems with it. Firstly, people will just be leaking the 3 o'clock kickoffs. For deadlines at 1 o'clock when the first match kicks off, everyone will be leaking the 3 o'clock fixtures. Secondly, people in different time zones and people who don't like being tied to the computer on a Saturday afternoon, want to spend it with their family, or they might be at a wedding or anything, and don't have time to be glued to FPL on a Saturday afternoon. And people in other time zones are at a huge disadvantage if you move it to the deadline. And the third problem is it would kill the transfer market, I think, because who's going to bother making early transfers when you get the team news? Like, supposing weeks where there is no early fixture and all the games are starting at the same time, nobody's going to make an early transfer. They're just going to sit there. So it's going to kill the transfer market. It's going to make everything extremely boring. And it's just a terrible option, moving it to the deadline. It's unfair, like I said, terrible option. Some people said have a rolling deadline, like they do in certain other formats where the games lock at different times. That ties you to the computer even more. I mean, the winner of FPL in that case is going to be the person with no life who just sits there every single match, and other people are going to be at a massive disadvantage again. Remaining the same. Now, we know that's not working. Every single week there's leaks, and it doesn't do anyone any good, not even the people who like leaks, because it makes people do stupid things. And we saw that this week. FPL Harry probably meticulously planned his team the entire week. We get a leak that Mamouche isn't starting, and what does he do? He panics and takes a very uncharacteristic -8. He said the same thing himself, and it's because of the pressure of those leaks. So keeping it the same, it's just not working. It's not doing anybody any favours. So the only option is to move it back. They don't have to do anything drastic. They could even just move it back next season half an hour. And if that works, keep it the same. If it doesn't work, then the next season, move it back another half an hour. That's an option. Or they could just make an hour cut next season, or even a 2-hour cut. They could have the deadline at 10 a.m. UK time. Everyone would know when it was. You wouldn't have to worry about not making your moves at that time. You could make them the night before, in the knowledge that you wouldn't have to worry about leaks or anything. So you could make your transfers at your leisure, basically, which would leave your weekend free to relax and not have to be totally stressed in the hour before kickoff. And the other big disadvantage with moving it to deadline, of course, is you'd have 10 million managers all making their transfers in the last half an hour, and the site could well crash. It'd be chaos, absolute chaos. So number 2 option there is by far the best. Anyway, peeps, I'm off now. I will be doing a dedicated deadline video after the season's finished. You know, we're going to have to try and get it moved. We're going to have to spread the word, and because it is not working as it is. Anyway, peeps, I'm off now. So like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all later anyway. So cheers for now then, peeps.